Hello again. This is Matt Orozco, and I'm joined by my good friend.
Lowell Greenblat. Hello.
Nice to see you, Lowell.
You too, Matt.
Yes, I love these monthly chats, and if you don't know what you're watching already, bravo. But if you need a reminder, this is Macabre Monthly. We are part of Macabre Daily. This is our monthly show to review what is new in the world of horror and horror adjacent things, sci-fi, cult, all you can think of. And we also pick something horror related to talk about. This time we are going to talk a bit about the Child's Play series. Particularly, we're going to rank them in order of our favorites. So very excited for that. Before we get too far into things, what you been watching, Lowell?
Glad you asked, Matt. I watched the Paul Schrader remake of Cat People from 1982. Reviewed it for Scream Factory because they're putting out a new 4K, which looks great. It's not really my kind of horror, but as I was saying before, I really appreciate it because it's very well made. It's totally insane. I described it as adult Twilight with werecats, but but made and played 100% straight. Like it's a love story that's given weight and taken seriously. There's a running theme of incest, which is taken seriously. The
As you
cat,
do.
it's a Jerry Bruckheimer production from the early '80s. Though I didn't get a big whiff of cocaine off of it, I was kind of surprised. Maybe
Probably
that
because
was
Don
more.
Simpson was in there and he
Yeah,
was making
Don
it feel
Simpson.
good.
There we go. I did enjoy it. It's a rousing recommendation. I enjoyed it. But I was more psyched about reviewing Dog Soldiers for Scream Factory. There's a 4K coming out for that too. Also looks great. And yeah, I can think of more, but you go.
No, that's fair. I'm excited for that Dog Shoulders release because I have the old Scream Factory Blu-ray, and I definitely consider that worthy of the upgrade to a new definition. Uh,
Definitely. There's a ton more features too. So
oh, okay.
yeah,
Well,
it's basically the second side edition, but for Region A.
ah,
So
okay.
yeah, same special features. The transfer is even the same. There's just no hardback and like collectible cards. So if you're a sucker for that, like some of us are, go for it. But if you don't want to pay international shipping, yep.
Well, that is the
Sure.
big divider nowadays is the shipping charge, and also knowing that space is a commodity in this apartment renting world we live in. Um, but yeah, I always think of cat people as kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum as sleepwalkers, where like sleepwalkers is like what would happen if you make the trashiest werecat movie of all time with incest, by the way,
Yeah.
running theme with
No, I
werecats.
meant in my review, I actually say like in the incestuous werecat love story sleepwalk. I mean, cat people. Like, yeah, I know I wasn't the only one who made that connection, but yeah, spot on.
Yeah, there's just a lot more cocaine in sleepwalkers, like across the board, behind and in front of the camera, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah.
so I have seen a few things. The first one is an older film, but relevant to has had a prequel come out, which is I just saw Orphan. I'd never actually seen. Well, I take that back. I saw Orphan when it first came out, and I do not remember anything about it except of the face of the person who plays said orphan. Um, and wow, that movie fucks, man. Like that that is that is a that I think it's one of
I
those
know.
movies that like goes places you didn't think it's gonna go, and it does.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know the twist,
Mm.
and I don't know. Like, killer kid movies aren't really my thing, and it was something like 2 hours. Is it over 2 hours? Did I hear that right? Or it's
I,
almost 2 hours?
so I don't know about the new one, but the previous one is around. It's about 2 hours. Like I think it's maybe just
But
shy or slightly above.
you're talking about the one from 2009, and you're talking about the new one.
The 2009 one.
Okay. Yeah, it was one of those like I'll get around to it eventually, and then I just never did. But I hear it's great. That actress Isabel Thurman is awesome. She was just in a movie called The Novice, which is sort of like Whiplash with rowing, and she was great in that. So I'm sure it's good. It'll just work its way up my Netflix queue eventually. But go on.
I mean, the premise didn't actually strike me that much when it first came out to begin with. I think it was one of those like, I think it came out around the time when uh, Netflix was still doing DVDs before they switched entirely to streaming. So I'm pretty sure I got it that
They
way, and
still do DVDs because I
they
still
do.
get the DVD.
It's a
Which
DVD.com, I think they own. Is that what they
yeah, but
make?
it's still through the Netflix website. I'm never gonna get rid of it because that's it's too good.
Yeah, fair
And
play. And then sometimes I wish about restarting it, but then I realize I have so much stuff that I haven't even watched yet. So I have to put myself in timeout sometimes. But I also watched Nope, which pretty
oh
good.
yeah, yeah,
Did you see
I
it?
I, I saw it too. I see. I told you I'd remember more of these that I've seen because we really didn't talk about it when we had
Wow.
Dave Strauchel and Kim Gunzinger last time. That was a special broadcast. But yeah, I also saw Nope. I liked it. Yeah, I really liked it. I think it's going on the top 10 for this year. Um, not I'm not like pouring over it like a lot of
Sure.
people are. Whereas like Us is just like a bottomless ocean of shit to talk about. But like Nope seems to be his most straightforward movie, which is fine. But yeah, I was entertained. And it's funny. It's like I always felt like he's following the Shyamalan trajectory of like the first movie, which blows the door open. The second movie, which is demonstrably better, but history hasn't caught up with it yet. Just wait. And the third movie, which is about aliens.
Yeah. Wow. I
Yeah.
never thought about it in terms of M. Night Shyamalan, but I mean, there is. I almost they make very similar films in that they are very much about like a reveal that granted, Peele is much better at like, I'm just gonna call it edging, for the lack of a better term, but like Shyamalan like waits for the end and just drops it on you. Peele kind of keeps you sustained throughout. Let's gives you a little to go off of. But I mean, Nope was good. I feel like with a lot of with Jordan Peele films, it's weird to say that films, but he's only made three, but they all are very similar in that I need to the first time I see them, I feel like I'm only getting a bit of the experience because I'm so at this point finally tuned to try and figure out like, what's he trying to do here? Like what's all this trying to say? It's almost
Yeah.
like a
What is the
scavenger hunt.
theme? Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
But so I feel like I'm gonna have a different point of view if I watch it again with different
Mhm.
like kind of eyes that are expecting some things. One thing that totally flew over my head, and this is probably a bigger testament to the fact that this is not a movie I watch as often as most horror fans, but I did not get the Jaws reference until someone explained it to me. I was like, oh, okay, that does totally make sense. This is like Jordan Peele's Jaws. Um, but again, I don't watch Jaws, and I haven't watched Jaws enough in my life. It's not a film I revisit as often as most. But because of that, I think I would have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like explicit, but it's you can kind of tell that it's Sky Jaws.
Yeah,
And
Sky Jaws of the for third kind.
yeah, yeah, there we go. I will say that like when Jordan Peele finally does make a bad movie, I'm calling it now. It's still going to be a very watchable movie that we will still be talking about years and years later. Because also with Shyamalan, even when he doesn't hit the bullseye, his failures are fascinating. Or maybe failures is too harsh a word for me.
Yeah.
I just used it. I instantly regret it, but other people are not so kind. But I feel like when the internet eventually turns on Jordan Peele, where there's even whatever film it is, it's still going to be fascinating and like well thought out, and still have the intelligence and care that he's shown for the three of his films so far.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's interesting. I think Shyamalan. So I'm going to bring this to a very different place for just a second. I was just talking with John Woo about John Woo with somebody else, and John Woo's Hollywood career specifically. And
Mhm.
John Woo's Hollywood career gets unfairly maligned because of how cheesy some of the concepts are. but everybody forgets how much fucking fun those movies are. I mean, even though Mission Impossible 2 is not that good of a movie at a narrative level, it is highly entertaining, more so than like a Fast and Furious film in regards to the action set pieces. Same with like Hard Target. Like plot wise, it's the silliest fucking plot.
Uh,
But you know
I
what?
can't,
It works.
but I can't. Yes, but I can't even count Hard Target as his output because you know it was messed with. I mean,
Yeah.
Bob freaking Morowski, like Sam Raimi's editor, is the credited editor on that movie. But you watched it and it's cut to shit. Like
Yeah.
you know he didn't. You know it was compromised. You know it was the same guy who cut Evil Dead 2 like was locked out of the editing room for Hard Target. So I give him a pass for that. But yeah, Face Off still fucks.
Broken
And the
Arrow.
people, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, so I look at, you know, M. Night Shyamalan, like his films are already getting a bit of a resurgence, I feel like. And the thing that's fascinating is the only thing that makes his movies not good is the twist. Everything up to that point is usually pretty solid. It's just the twist either makes that everything relies so much on that twist that if you don't buy into the twist, like The Village, that was a twist that I was like, go fuck yourself. Like this is that's cheap. And then, but on the other hand, the Visit, not to pick two V named ones, but The Visit actually had a pretty interesting twist that I was like, okay, I buy this. Like, you know, like, and so Old was the same way. Like, I didn't really buy the twist at the end, but you know what? Leading up to that point, really good stuff.
Yeah. It's
So
really, really well made. He is a really good director. And I said this before, I'll say it again. Like whatever his idea is, he does it 110%, whether it winds up being a good idea or a bad idea.
yeah,
You know, it's
gotta admire that.
so you're either gonna get like a really good movie or a really bad movie with him. Like, but certainly not for lack of trying.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and to bring it back to Jordan Peele, he's not like I don't ever think he'll get that maligned because I just can't imagine that. I mean, even currently, I would say Nope is
Yeah.
probably my least favorite. But like, well, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I said, have you met the internet, Matt?
I have, but I don't listen to the internet as much as I should. Well, maybe that's a good thing
No, you listen to it just enough, believe me.
because I mean, they did turn on. Well, let's put it this way: Peele has a set. There is a set of folks on the internet who will, no matter what, immediately take down Jordan Peele's movies, and you see it whenever they're hyping up his release. You'll see people saying "Get Out wasn't that good" or "Us sucked," and it's like, first of all, you go make a fucking movie, and second of all, like that's not like that's your opinion. That's not the truth, the objective truth. So I think there's enough goodwill behind Jordan Peele at this point that he can't really make a bad movie. He's not going to flop, but at the same time, I think Nope is probably gonna uh, it's it's going to set a different tone for maybe what he does next. Hopefully not. I hope he just continues to do what he wants. But we
Yeah.
could go on about Nope all day. It's pretty good. I want to see it again. I overall again not my most favorite of his, but of his three films, it's like kind of saying, oh, would I rather have butterscotch chocolate or this delicious cherry? Like I don't know. They're all delicious, right? It's a
Yeah.
terrible
He's
analogy.
3 for 3. Well, I got it. But
He is three for
he's
three.
3 and he's not slowing down. Like, yeah.
Now I want to see, and I hope to see more from his like production company as well because I know they're doing quite a bit. But just the more in the Peel verse is good for me. And then I'll just cap it off with Prey, which did you watch Prey?
Oh, yeah.
What did you
Just
think?
great. Just I figured it would be fun, but I didn't know how much I was going to like it. And I'm not even a huge Predator fan. I actually really like Predators
Yes,
from 2010. It's
yes,
highly underrated. And I just thought Prey, there's something to be said today about how there's no real world building. There's not really a sequel set up. I mean, there's some stuff in the credits, but like, no, it's just what happened if a predator went back and fought the Native Americans, and it's an incredible idea, and it's done to the hilt. I feel like all the money was left on screen,
yeah.
and it's just a fun, badass predator movie. It's
It,
great. I didn't even need the callbacks to the original film. I mean, they're fine. They weren't that distracting, but yeah, just like a great sci-fi action sort of horror movie.
you know, I can't believe I'm going to say this because I'm usually the person that is advocating against long form television at this point. But I actually think that the Predator series, if they were to take it and chunk it into periods, because this is not a new idea, so I'm not going to sit here and claim that no one said this because I believe there wasn't someone. I've seen different people say the same thing around having it be in like feudal Japan, and like that would be amazing as well. But what I kind of feel like the Predator, this template sets the tone for is a shorter season, like 6 episodes a season, each an hour long, where you can kind of do a bit more world building, kind of set up this kind of almost stalkerish. Because what I think the Prey did really well, the Predator did really well, is like it gives you just enough lead up before it really starts to hit you with stuff, and you're never bored. You're always on edge. But once it starts going, you're just waiting for the next hit. And I think that again, the internet. The reason why I don't listen to the internet as much, and again, that's probably a good thing, is because people are trying to take the movie down just for the largely purpose of that it was really good. Like I genuinely think people are threatened by how good it is, and I would go so far as to say it is the second best Predator movie. I love Predator 2. I do, but you know what? It is not a great movie. It is a fun movie, but Prey is a much better movie. Full stop. And the whole argument of, well, you know, how would she defeat the Predator's technology? I always think those arguments are so stupid. It's like you're watching a fucking movie, man. Like let it go.
Yeah,
Like sit back. Like like crazy shit happens, but like more importantly, like are you here to watch a Predator and someone else fight it out? Or are you here to just try and figure out the logical explanation of how these things could actually happen? Because I'll tell you what, bud, there's no Predator. Like there's just none. Like it's
yeah.
just. So anyway, I dug it. I dug the hell of it. I need to go back and watch it because I didn't realize when I started it that there's a Comanche dubbed version, which I would love to just see. Like I think that that's cool that they did that, and I'm really, you know, would be foolish to like not take advantage of that while it's on streaming because we all know streaming services guarantee nothing anymore. Looking at you,
Yeah.
HBO Max.
We all are.
Yeah,
But yeah, also, I mean, the franchise is 35 years old, and we barely know anything about the Predators. Like
is that a
we
good
still,
thing?
I think so, but well, I I feel like 2018's The Predator kind of did some unnecessary world building, especially at the end there. But I
I
think there
forgot
was
about that one.
yeah,
I genuinely forgot
I
about it. I own it. Like, wow.
I know the Iron Man Predator suit at the end. Like, come on, man. I Shane Black, you're better than this. You
It
gave us
really
the
is.
Monster Squad. You know better than this.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but yeah, there's just there's a lot more room to explore there. You're right; they could be in different eras. They've been coming here for however long. So yeah, but I did kind of like that. He has like the shoulder cannon in like his other movies. He just has so much ordnance. But because this was like a few hundred years before the '87 one, the original, I did kind of like that. Like, there's not a lot of explosive stuff. He's got like one really good trick where he like throws down a predator briefcase and the people around him like wind up being blown to bits. But really, the laser cannon is just like spears. They're
Yeah, it's
little
like
spear bolts.
magnets. It's almost like
Yeah,
it's like you put it somewhere and then it goes wherever that is. Uh,
yeah,
and and he
and
also
that
looked
hurt.
bigger. He looked like more like substantial compared. But again, I mean Arnold's not a big guy either. So like I would venture to guess that I don't know the actor's name who was in Prey. What was her name?
Amber Thunder.
Yes. I don't know how tall she is, but I'll tell you this much: Arnold Schwarzenegger is like 5'7". So like, it's not as if like he's towering over the Predator. And like, obviously, use camera tricks to make people look tall. Tom Cruise, but it's like, but yeah, like I just, it looked more. I like that they made it look less developed in the face. Like it kind of looked grungier. It just was. It's just well done. In fact, the only thing I think that is a shame is like you could tell that this definitely didn't get as much money as it would have if it would have gone to theaters. Um, because, and I think
Mhm.
and I think it would look good. Like I'm
Yeah.
not, and that's not a takedown. It's more like it's kind of like the Mortuary Collection.
Yeah.
It looks great, but if someone would have gave them like a few $1 million more, it would look exponentially better. And the movie's not, going to be
Mhm.
better for it. It just gives it the sheen that it deserves.
It's funny because from watching it, I was like, why the hell did this go right to streaming? Like you can imagine watching this in a theater. Like this is like movie theater quality. You would pay full price for this. Like, wow. I mean, great that it's in my living room, but like, my God, this needs to be seen on the big screen.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of recency bias here because I was just listening to the Colors of the Dark podcast and they actually talked about this specifically. And like Elric made a good point that there is the marketing budgets that go into these things create an expectation that becomes unwieldy, that the risk of failure is so much greater because of how much more money's spent and because there's no guarantee on the return. So like in a weird way, like I do wish what I do hope they do, and I've seen Netflix do this, and it's that I think that's how they actually were qualifying for the Academy Awards is do like single screenings of the movie or like do and I think I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Hulu did a screening at Comic-Con or something like that. So like it's not as if they're not, but if it's doing well on streaming, bring it in the theaters for like a weekend. It's not
We're
that
getting the
expensive.
new Evil Dead movie in theaters instead of on HBO Max.
That's a
That's a big
strategy.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a strategy. HBO. Anyway,
Well,
um,
I'm gonna pivot us over to again we mentioned at the start, we both contribute to a website. It's called Macabre Daily, so you can see it here, and we like to cover a few things that have been going on this month, and it has been quite a month. I want to
serious.
start with let's just start where it makes the most sense with Terrifier 2. Um,
Okay.
how do you feel about this?
I didn't see the first one. I
Oh, you
hear it was
haven't?
good. I hear people enjoyed it. Good for them. I didn't really have an opinion on it either way, but the fact that the sequel is what 148 minutes,
138,
that 130 138 minutes. So that's
2 hours and
two
18
hours,
minutes.
2 hours and 18 minutes. That's that's almost two movies, or at least like that's longer. Like, I'm sorry, maybe you have a vision. That's great. If people love Terrifier, I'm glad they're getting much more Terrifier next time. But what the hell, man? Like, come on. What?
Yeah,
This
I,
does
I
not
mean,
need to be that long. I know. I saw your rant. I agree with you. I don't really have anything else to add, but just like you're not making it, even though there's a clown.
yeah,
Like even making it like okay, no horror movie I think should be longer than 2 hours unless there's a really good fucking reason for it.
couldn't agree
Uh,
more. Yeah,
The Shining, Doctor Sleep, It 1 and 2, yes, perfectly good reasons. But my God,
yeah.
no, no.
I mean,
But
listen,
you know what?
I
Prove me
the
wrong.
exactly. Like I own Terrifier. I liked it. It's not. I guess if I
It
would have
seems
saw Terrifier, if I would have seen it when I was in my like peak younger horror years of like your teens and like your early 20s when like well, early 20s are full of a lot of drinking, but like more like your teen years, like when you're kind of figuring out all this cool
mhm,
shit about horror. It's kind of movie that like if I would have seen that at a certain point in my life, that would have probably been one of my favorite movies. And I love the
mhm,
practical effects because they're super effective. The storytelling is not the best, and it's kind of the biggest problem is like you have all this like you have this wonderful icing, but the cake inside is kind of bland, and like that's the challenge. So what I'm looking forward to is that maybe that problem's been solved, that maybe they've made me care more about the people in this movie because really all you care about in the first one is the clown, is art. And while that's fine, that is also the kind of thing that gets really old after an hour and a half. And the first Terrifier is not think it's around
Mhm.
90 minutes, maybe a little longer. And you feel it, like you definitely feel parts of it because of it's. But so, yeah, I'm not. I don't wish ill will to Terrifier 2, and I don't think either of us do. But I do think that
Nope.
there is an ass that's being made when filmmakers like Ari Aster, I love Ari Aster's
Mhm.
work. I don't like all I not all of it is my favorite thing, but when you make me sit through 2.5 hours of Midsummer and you don't give me like some people got a lot out of it, but for me, it just felt like I would have cut 30 minutes from this and it would have been the same movie. So
Mhm.
I want it to do well. I'm sure it's going to do well. I'm sure it's going to be just as disgusting and like amazing in that way that the first one was. So get good reactions. I've been trying to keep some ignorance to it. I did watch the trailer break my rule, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Because I'll forget what the fuck happened in it anyway. But you know what? To end, what I will end on with this is kudos for creating Art the fucking Clown. I was just talking about this yesterday in an interview, and creating a horror icon is something that happens very, very infrequently. And you go back to the Universal monsters, and then after that, you pretty much wait until you get to wait Norman Bates, maybe, but not even till later. It's like the 80s when you actually the 70s and the 80s when you really start to get iconic horror figures, and it's really the 80s that doubles down on it. So
Silhouette. Yeah.
so I can't think of another character in horror aside from Jigsaw uh, in recent memory that has been as impactful, and that's something to be recognized, to for what that's worth.
Absolutely. And I mean, people have tried to make the next
Yeah,
Freddy Krueger, the next horror icon, and you can tell they're really bucking for it, but it doesn't land, and it's kind of you get some egg on your face. But when it really works, like with here, with Jigsaw, with Annabelle, um, even though those movies, but like still, like when you create a recognizable
they're
horror
iconic.
antagonist, that's yeah, iconic. That's nothing to sniff at.
Yeah, and I it furthers the point that I think that I've always thought is like you can't create a horror icon just by saying have a cool idea. You need a really good idea with the right person to play that and the right
Oh,
forum for them to show how great they are. And to that
mhm.
end, even though there are like some narrative like there's just it's kind of boring some of like the melodramatic stuff in Terrifier. If you cut it out, it's a much tighter film. It's much less it's much more direct. But either way, like it's all of that happens in Terrifier. There is really good kills. Art's a great character, and he's given full reign to like and the actor, I forget his name. It's three names.
David Howard Thornton.
There we go, David Howard Thornton, and it's Damien Leone is the writer director. Like David Howard Thornton, like he is the Freddy. He's Robert Englund, right? And that's what you need behind the mask. So I'll watch the fuck out of it. Like I'll give it the money, and I hope it
Mhm.
does well. But man, I'm gonna need some snacks. So this um I'm so excited for this. Like
I
we just talked
still
about
can't
Prey.
believe it's happening. Like I feel like we've heard rumbles about a new Hellraiser film and a Hellraiser series forever, but it's like, yeah,
5 years at least 5 years of
yeah, it's like,
serious talks.
and now it's here in like just over a month, and I can't believe it. And I'm like, bring it on. This looks cool, but like I want to actually see
Yeah.
Jamie Clayton acted out, because right now this picture alone looks like digital art, like
Yes.
Photoshop, and
AI art. Yeah.
good Photoshop. Like it look I this would be great on a poster, but like I have no concept of how she would look like acting in a film. But I can't wait to see. I mean, that is certainly Pinhead. And I mean, going back to what you were saying about Predator, making it would be great as an anthology series. 100% Hellraiser would be too. Just Hellraiser through the eras. I think the comic even did
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, because that's one of the great things about the Cenobites is, despite what Hellraiser 3 and Hellraiser Bloodline tell you, fun as they are, Cenobites don't have an agenda. They're there
Yeah.
for balance.
They're
They
endless.
just, yeah, exactly. They pop up just whenever someone summons the box. to take them to hell. That's it. That's it. That's all they got to do. And that lends itself to so many different stories. So we're getting a new Hellraiser story from David Bruckner and the
Yeah.
writers of the House. Like, I
I
if this
am
sucks, there's no hope. There's no hope left. That's it. That's it.
well,
I'm my old blockbuster card.
I am just gonna say that I actually am glad that they're being very coy with the reveals because
Yeah.
I think that when they announced Jamie Clayton was going to take on the role of Pinhead, like first of all, um that is a courageous act to take on the role of Pinhead because no one has been able to do it since Doug Bradley. And like people have tried, I think forget the last
Yeah.
person who did Judgment. He was
Mhm.
okay, but he just there is it's not it. And with Jamie Clayton, there was already that initial pushback because of her being in the role. And I think that some of that has simmered to a point where it's irrelevant. But now it's like, how do you live up to that? I'm taking some cues here. First and foremost, kind of looks like there's this like skin lattice that's happening here, which leads me to
Mhm.
believe that like there whatever we see below is probably not something you're allowed to show openly in your press kit. Like, and so
Yeah.
I get the sense that like this could be very really visceral because even the Night House was like surprisingly brutal for what it like for what kind of movie it was. So I don't know. I'm trying to temper my expectations. I really hope that Hulu doesn't kind of go around big dick in it because the Prey did so well and like really like pulling off like whatever they did to whatever worked with Prey as far as like the Hulu contribution. Like I hope that that was doubled down on or at least just replicated here. So I'll be watching this as soon as it comes out. I want to see no more about it except this.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, and then got a couple more here. So Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey trailer. Did you watch the trailer?
Yeah.
What did you think?
I it's for someone, it's just not for me. Um just insert the Jeff Goldblum meme about how you spent so much time thinking about whether you could do it, you didn't think about whether you should. This
Public
is
domain.
like
Amityville Karens.
okay, am I wrong? There's no reason for this to exist. I mean, maybe someone will see it and then tell me, no, there is a very good reason. It's about the society's ills and about the need for honey. And I don't know, man. I try to keep an open mind, and you got to as a horror fan, but just what the fuck is this?
I'm
That's all.
excited. I'm totally on the other end of this. Like I am, and here, but my reason for my excitement is that this looks like the kind of thing that is either going to be awful or downright amazing. There is no like middle ground on this thing. Like, and I think that to that end, I've heard something about the film. They're not going to say, I don't want to say it because it sounds like a spoiler, but it got me more excited about it. And what I liked about the concept is that no matter what the reasoning for this all happening, what only matters is if they can pull off making Winnie the Pooh and Piglet come off as killers. Like I don't know if you saw the Banana Splits movie, but that actually was really like it's not the greatest movie of all time, but you know what? It's better than most of the stuff that came out, and it is the same kind of thing. It's like these innocuous, kind of innocent things from our childhood have now turned on us, and when done well, like I think there's a lot of fun to be had. Is it deep? If it tries to go deep on something, is it going to work? Absolutely not. This is not high concept, like deep thoughts, Jack Handy shit. Like this is we got access to public domain. Like it's like the reason why the Amityville Karen movies or the Amityville in space movies exist because you can
Yeah.
and it doesn't cost you anything to do it. But to that end, should you? Not always. But I will watch this, and it looks. This poster feels like I don't know. I feel like this poster doesn't do service to the quality of the trailer, but
I think it kind of does. I'm not hot on this, but you
yeah.
know what? If I got a screener, I'd watch it. So
Well,
you
please,
let
yeah,
uh,
send us the
yeah.
screeners. We'll watch it. We will dedicate an episode to it. What we will probably end up dedicating an episode to, because it is inevitable, because this movie is the Trump of films. Whenever it hits the news, it is instantly talked about. Uh, Halloween Ends is getting more and more press with this new bloody image. I have, as I told you before we started, I have kept completely ignorant to Halloween Ends fanfare because I want to go in with no with the same expectation it came out of with Kills, which is I hope he kills some people.
Yeah, they're not really telling us anything, which I actually kind of like because
Yes.
this I would go into like knowing as little as possible. I am afraid of a possible. I have a theory about how it's going to end that I haven't really taken from anything that's been released about it. This just occurred to me, and I'm worried this will happen. And if it does, I will be very cross with Mr. Gordon Green and Danny McBride. Can I tell you what I'm afraid will happen?
Yes.
So I think Lori is going to die, which not necessarily the bad part. Can you
Yeah.
hear my dog scratching at the door, by the way?
No. Oh, like
No?
oh no. Like maybe, but not really. Like
Maybe
honestly,
no.
like yeah, like I think I can hear it like when there's a bit of silence, but yeah, no big deal.
Okay. That's a big lead up. So I think Allison's going to be the final girl, her granddaughter, throughout most of the movie. And then it's going to end with them recapturing him, bringing him to the asylum. And she's like, I will stand guard. I will make sure he doesn't leave. But if he leaves, I'll be ready for him. And the Halloween music swells and we cut to black. If that's the end of this movie, I'm going to be so pissed. And then David Gordon Green is like, well, it's Halloween ends, not Michael Myers ends. I trust that he's smarter than that, and I don't know why I have this somewhat detailed theory. I don't know why it came to
That's
me.
very explicit.
There's no because like Malik Akkad wants it to keep going, but I hope that they end it here and then just reboot it. Just keep rebooting it because if the idea is to make a trilogy, just end it. Give us a final third movie. That is what I am hoping for. And I say this as someone who likes Halloween Kills and kind of likes it more for reasons no one really talks about in the past year. But yeah, I might just be completely insane, and we'll talk about it next month. But yeah,
Yeah. No, I pick up what you're putting down. I mean, I will be on that thought did not cross my mind. But what I will say is that it's not out of the realm of possibility. Now I'm a little nervous. I do give him and I do give them enough credit that they would be wise enough to give us like let's put oh well before I say what I'm about to say, the reason why H2O was so much fun, even though there was so much that's not has not aged well about it, is because Michael Myers gets his fucking head chopped off, and that's the first
um,
time in the series that ever's happened, and so that has ever happened, and so the presumption up to that point is that that's the only thing that actually could kill him that hasn't been tried, and it's not only that his head gets chopped off; it gets chopped off by Jamie Lee Curtis. So
yeah. Who then
I'm
breathes and then the Halloween theme kicks in for the first time. The proper Halloween theme kicks in for the first time in the whole fucking movie. But yeah,
But
go on.
also, it's the John Ottman version, which is fucking amazing with the orchestral backing. Like, I stand the fuck out of the
Yeah,
H2O theme.
he's
But but anyway, I think that they're smart enough to know that that's what people would really want, and I, it's totally possible that they might. Yeah, your mouse of I'm gonna just call it the Akkad theory. um, is that his final cut is gonna supersede kind of the right thing to do, but I did hear another rumor about this that I'm not going to share it just because I just it's somewhat spoilery, and like it's the kind of reason why I've been trying to stay away from this news is because I feel like there's so I wouldn't be surprised if they were feeding the rumor mill just to create
Yeah,
confusion so that they could
I hope
distract
they
from what they're
are.
trying to do. Like
Yeah.
I'm not saying, not putting on the tinfoil hat here with Joaquin
Mhm.
Phoenix, but I do think that there is a element to like they've learned from Halloween Kills and the way that you can use social media, the internet's virality to kind of your advantage. And some of that is just controlling the messaging by distracting. So maybe that's going to happen. I don't know. I'm going to move away from my horror InfoWars section over here.
No, but I am but the studios have done that before to prevent spoilers, and I am here for it. I
Yeah,
am 100%
yeah.
for
Give it back to us.
people leaking fake spoilers so that when we see it, it's not what we thought. Like,
Yeah,
keep at it. But
yeah. Like use our
yeah,
psychology
um,
against us.
yeah, and I'm gonna see this in theaters, even though it's gonna be on Peacock the same day.
Yes.
Maybe I'll watch it again on Peacock. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you there. I will be going to the theaters for this because you know what? There's just something about. I mean, first of all, seeing movies like this in the theater is equivalent of seeing, Top Gun in the theater. It's like it's the horror Top Gun. It's like this is the movie you need to see. Would love it or hate it. And that's that. I'm sure we'll have. I can almost guarantee we will have a Macabre Monthly dedicated to this movie. So
fine with that.
yeah, it's inevitable. Well, we're moving on to so season 2 of Chucky is coming out. Do you happen to remember the premiere date? I look
October
it up.
5th or
October
whatever.
5th. So we were about a month, little over a month out. And we did one of our first like runs of this was
I think it was our very first one was reviewing that first season.
yeah. So I mean, maybe we'll link to that in this later. So you can go back in time, so to speak. But the season overall, we were both pretty positive on first season of Chucky, and I think we were both kind of surprised that they pulled it off. So it was kind of interesting going back to revisit the series, which we're going to rank. We figure, what better way to bring in the new season by going back and looking at the old films and ranking to see where we stand on them today. So as far as rules go, the only rule I held myself to was I didn't include the TV series.
Yeah, that was literally my only rule as well.
Okay. All
So,
right.
and I didn't bother with remake because
I did.
that's not a. You did?
Oh yeah. I just
That's
watched
fine.
it today to prepare.
Did you watch it for the first time today?
No, I saw it in theaters when it came out because I was gung ho on that thing when it came out. I mean, not to say I was gung ho after I came out. More, I was really looking forward to it because I just wanted to see what they were going to do. But
Yeah.
so I have 8 on my list. That means you have 7, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well then, in the essence of efficiency, I will kick it off with my 8. Um, so Cult of Chucky is my number 8.
Interesting.
And I would need to caveat this by saying that it's kind of disingenuous to rank these by presuming that the bottom one is a bad movie, because of all of the horror franchises, the Child's Play series is probably the most consistent,
Yep.
especially one that has this many entries in it. So
Mhm.
I when I say that like Cult of Chucky is my least favorite, it's not because it's a bad movie. It's because all the others are just better for me. And I think what Cult of Chucky, was really good at doing was Don Mancini seems to be building the plane as he's flying it. I don't know, but he's doing a really good job at just perpetuating this mythology that never existed. And it's coming off as pretty believable for the most part. So,
Mhm.
save for the ending where I think that things kind of, and again, it connects to the series, which I think is kudos
Mhm.
to being able to do that and do it, like kudos to building your Chucky verse. Like that's, that's commendable, but it is a bit, there's some of it that like, just like any, even the Marvel universe, like there's some of it I'm just like, that's a bit fucking silly. Like I don't buy that. So
Mhm.
the many Chuckies to me was like I get like this, the logical evolution makes sense, but it didn't really do a lot for me, even though there was some entertainment to be had. And it just gets messy. Like the best thing about it though, Alex Vincent coming back as Andy Barclay.
Yeah.
Because that
On.
first scene with him and the head and just it's just good to see him back in that role. But still an enjoyable movie, just my least favorite.
Did you see the post-credit scene in Curse of Chucky?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll get to that. I had Cult as my number 7 of 8.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I mean, going back to what you said about they're all quality. I mean, they're consistent, but also each film is different than the one before it. Like
Yeah.
that, like which is that's commendable. Like I feel like maybe the Nightmare on Elm Street series is one of the only other series that does that, whereas the Friday the 13th are kind of stagnant. But Don Mancini doesn't reinvent the wheel, but like he does different things with his films, and there's something to be said there. That's
Yeah.
always entertaining. But yeah, Cult kind of does feel like the pilot for the Chucky TV series, which is mostly why I ranked it so low, because it's just kind of like, what? And then it ends. And it's like, yeah, this is a cliffhanger, but this is like a cliffhanger of cliffhangers. This is like a mega cliffhanger. Like, you better know you're coming back, buddy. And he did. And, thankfully, like the swings that he takes in this are followed up with a TV show, as they should be, because there's a lot to unpack. But yeah, like the multi Chuckies was strange, but them like talking to each other, and the one with the haircut was just like, I laughed, I
Yeah.
did, and we get a drill kill in this one. Not many horror movies with drill deaths, but this one does, and just you can tell everyone's having fun. Fiona Dourif getting to act like her dad. Spoiler, kinda like it's not great, but not it's not top tier Chucky, but it's still worth a watch.
But it's still like you can put this movie on and like check in and out of it, and you're no worse for the wear. Like it's not
The ringing,
like
yeah,
there's not a lot going on in the back. Like in the back half, there is, well, the back like quarter basically. There is a lot, but not that it's easy to pick up on. I think if you're following along generally what's going on, and it is entertaining. Like that's the thing. Like it's not a bad movie. It's just it reaches more than the rest do, and that I think that's kind of that's the net. So to my number 7 is I don't know if this is going to surprise you or not, but it's Bride of Chucky, and this is based
I'm
on
not
rewatch.
surprised about this. I'm surprised about where my number 8 is going to wind up on your list, but not that it's a bad thing.
Wait,
But
wait, 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 hon. What's your number 8?
my number 8,
Yes.
okay. Then if we're doing this, my number 8 is Child's Play 3, which if it's number 2, I'm never mind.
It's not. It's
Never.
not number. It's not number 2. It's not number 2.
Abundance mentality. Everything's great. But still, it's totally watchable. But it's also kind of forgettable. It was rushed into production after Child's Play 2, and you can kind of tell. And they do what they can. But Chucky at a military school. I mean, I'm not against the military school as a setting for a horror movie. I think that could be interesting, but it never quite gels with this. Justin Whalen, who plays the older Andy, he's fine.
Yeah.
Brad Dourif's Chucky is getting more Jack Nicholson every single day. And also, like, I point to like the Scream Factory cover art for this, where it's just like the ending scene in the amusement park. Like that's all it is, because the rest of it isn't particularly memorable, and the score is terrible. Like, I'm sorry, this was just something that I noticed. We can't all be Graham Revell, but like it was just like this weird acoustic, this weird electric slide guitar. But I will say it has the best opening of any film in the series, and that's saying something, because the Chucky series really brings it in its openings. But
Yes.
yeah, just like it's just a little sweaty, a little forced, and you can kind of tell. But luckily they took some time off and came back with Bride of Chucky, which is your number seven.
Yes.
So
Well, I'll come back to Child's Play 3, but I don't think your points are invalid. I will just say that outright. I will just, yeah.
it's funny. I mean, we mostly like agree on the quality of the series. It's just a
Yes.
matter of like the rankings. But you put Seed above Bride? Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, but okay, but
No
I've
judgment. But we
no, but
are
I
all
have. You're going to be really surprised with how I rank these this time. I guarantee it because I was surprised when I was doing it, and this is all like I rewatched the whole thing in the past week. I've rewatched all of them,
okay.
which is why I was literally finishing the remake today. So 7 is Bride of Chucky, and here's the thing. Again, it's not a bad movie at all, like at all. It's just what I found watching Bride of Chucky this time around is that the tone is so fucking all over the place that it can't commit. And the problem that what gets in the way of Bride of Chucky for me is that there's so much great about it. I mean, Jennifer Tilly, Tiffany, amazing, like the best bride of anything next to the Bride of Frankenstein. Like that is there's no one that is the one and the two right there. But to that end, like they juggle it around as if is it a horror movie? Do we want to be a laugh? Do we want to be this road movie? The two leads are so fucking awful. Like they are just like
Yeah, they're just
and maybe it's like just that time period too. That was kind of a cringy time period, that very early 2000s, like post
no
90s.
98.
Was it
That is a
98?
very Scream movie.
Yeah.
He's talking about like it's the 90s, like that was but
It's Katherine Heigl's in it before like she, became a bigger actress, like and
mm,
then became, irrelevant. So but like it just to me the tone was so hard to get into. And even though that it was not again not my favorite, like next to just above Cult, it's still not a bad movie, and I'd watch it again. I will watch it again because there's nothing that's objectively wrong with it. It's just as far as entertainment value for me, there's a lot that just didn't work. And that's also why, as you'll hear later, why Seed is much higher on my list because it is more confident in the movie it wants to be. And that's where Bride fails. And I think that's because it was Ronnie Yu who did
yeah,
Bride.
Ron.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
same with Freddy versus Jason, is like he knows what he's doing, but he's not like something's getting in the way of him going full on to something to like he's touching greatness, but he's like not committing to it. And I don't know if that's him, maybe it's the screenwriting, but for me, Bride this time just was like, I'm not, I can't go along with everything here. There's parts that are good, but on the whole, like the other, it's not, can't decide what it wants to
Doesn't
do.
equal to some of its parts. Okay.
Yeah.
Bride is actually my number three. Um it's it's a great return from the franchise after the most of the decade that it took off. Um Tiffany is a great addition.
Yeah.
Jennifer Tilly is an arc, like
Yes.
which it's one of the things that I kind of like a little bit less. It's great to see her in the later movies, but it's like no, she has an arc in this one. She has a story. Um, and yeah, the leads suck, but it's also the beginning of the campiness
Yeah.
in the Chuck Play series. Like camp creep is happening, but I mean, it really explodes in Seed. But like, I appreciate it. Like,
Literally.
I remember watching in the movie theater, like the Rob Zombie main credits end just as someone opens a door and you realize it's John Ritter, and the whole theater burst out laughing. And I'm like, okay, this is what kind of movie this is.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it follows its own logic. It knows how ridiculous it is, but it's like, yeah, okay, so we've got two doll people. We're gonna have them fuck, and it's something you will never ever forget. And that ending, it's the first Chucky movie where there is a cliffhanger. And it's just, I remember thinking, like, oh no, they brought the franchise back and they just killed it again because there's no way you can make a sequel to this movie. Like, you can't, there's that's a great effect, but like, no. And then they do. But yeah, it's just a fun, weird, campy, bloody road movie and is just another reinvention of Chucky, and I dig it.
Yeah. No, I'm again not a bad movie. Not at all. Not at all. So what's your number seven?
Three, four, five, six. Wait a minute. One, two, one, two,
Well,
three,
I
four.
have eight because I did the remake.
Yeah. Three. Hold on. Three, and then Colts, which we talked about. So I can count three, four, five, six. My number seven is three. My number six is Cult.
Okay.
And the great segue. My number five is Seed, um, which is full camp. Don Mancini said if he did another Chucky movie, he'd want it to be a musical. This one is practically a musical. It's like a musical without the songs. And it's so nuts. Like, and ahead of its time in a lot of ways, even though that doesn't quite speak to the quality because it's not the best, not the best Child's Play movie. There's stuff towards the end that doesn't even make sense, but like, God, it's so much fun. They get so much mileage out of the electronics, and Glenn is just a hoot. I mean, the he thinks he's Japanese because of the Made in Japan
Yeah.
stamp. Then there's a Matrix end, like, and John Waters getting his face melted off. I mean, just great. But like, it's a lot. It's a big swing. At the time, I was kind of perplexed by it, but it's grown on me a little bit. But
You're gonna
yeah,
lose your fucking mind with my list.
I just might. I just might.
All right. My number six is Curse of Chucky. Um,
Okay,
I
not
I
bad.
actually like
My
this
number
quite
four.
again, I like this one quite a bit. And the problems that I had with it are largely just that in regards to pacing, it's a 90-minute movie that feels like it's almost 2 hours. And I think it's
Yeah.
because the action, the third act of that movie absolutely rips. Like it
Mm.
is so much fun once he peels off the makeup and like it's
Oh, that was a great
yeah, it's an
reveal.
amazing. And like there's so much in that back quarter that's great. There is a flashback sequence in there that is one of the worst things that the series has ever done because it makes no sense. But you know what? Whatever, because everything else about Curse is actually pretty solid. Fiona Dora is outstanding. Like
Yeah.
the whole kind of setting, while again, it starts to the Chucky verse begins at Curse. Like what
Mm.
happened in Seed and like Bride are like extension or logical and illogical extensions of a series. But it's not. I mean, Seed is like the equivalent of going to space for like Leprechaun. But in the case of like Curse, it's like all right, now we're gonna try and actually make this into something. Like when I said before that Don Mancini's flying the plane while he's building it, I think that might have been too early to speak in that I think maybe he knew exactly what he was doing once Curse happened. And he
Mm.
had a bunch of ideas for movies to keep it going, and he just was able to keep doing it. But to that end, there's a lot that really works about Curse of Chucky, and there is a car sequence with a priest that is one of the best kills, not just in the series, but in horror. And there's so many great gore moments. Like it definitely,
Yeah.
when you get Brad Dourif, and it does kind of follow that. I don't want to say evolved, but like adapted Child's Play formula from the first film,
Mm.
except it kind of changes. It changes a little bit, just enough to make it new and different. And once your real Chucky's kind of fully revealed, it's like hell yeah, this thing is great. But again, it's not a bad movie. It's just of the rest of them, like I still find that my revisit of this one just wasn't as strong, but still highly entertaining, and will continue to watch again. None of these I would never watch again.
Yeah.
Sorry for the double or
It,
triple negatives.
yeah. It's my number four. It's, it was heralded as like the return to form, and it is kind of like the one that's most like the original. Uh, and it's so good that like you don't think about how patently ridiculous certain aspects of it are until it's over. which I guess is a double-edged compliment. Double,
Backhanded.
what's the backhanded compliment? There we go. Like, yes, even though I liked it, I don't think about why a woman and her disabled daughter live in a giant gothic mansion with a rickety old elevator. If you're rich, give her like some access,
Yeah.
you know, but that doesn't go along, that goes along with the Hammer horror film that Don Mancini is trying to make, and he deserves respect for that. I mean, especially when you've directed Seed of Chucky for your directorial debut, and then you're like, all right, I have an idea for a sixth film, and it's this. Like, who knew that was going to work or that he'd be able to pull it off? And he does.
Big balls.
And yeah, and the camp comes back in the end. Oh boy, does it come back! Um, and you know, the ending I thought was but the I thought that the post credit scene in this, if that was the last you ever saw of Chucky, if that was the final Chucky moment on screen, perfect
Yep.
circle. Like, and it wasn't, and that's fine. But like, you know, that to me is the ending of the film, not the ridiculousness before. But yeah, and also getting a lot of good use out of animatronics on a direct to
Yes.
video budget.
Sci-fi budget. Because I think it's viewed on sci-fi.
I think so. Yeah, but so I mean, Chucky never looked as good to me as he did in the theatrical films. But I will say he doesn't look bad in any of them. He just looks better in the theatrical ones, but he still looks scary. And I noticed one of the things they kind of went back on, maybe because Don Mancini wanted to, was the thing where like the longer he spends time in the doll body, the more human he gets.
Yeah.
And they kind of, and he has a look like, as we'll talk about later on, where he looks like more fleshy and pale, and his hairline recedes in the earlier ones. They don't really keep up with here, and that's a shame. Or in the later ones, but like it's still fine. It's Chucky in an old dark house, and it works.
I mean, you lose Kevin Yeager at some point, and that's kind of the that's the part that, you know, unfortunately, and they did it. I will say, when you see in Curse, when you see him finally like as, you know, scarred up Chucky, it's like, yes, that is like, that looks fucking cool. And but yeah, not a bad movie. You know, what's the next on your list?
So that would be, we are up to the top two.
Oh wait, oh, you're at the top two already.
Yeah, because I'm as you're bringing them up, I'm talking about them. So, but just to repeat, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is 3, 6 is Cult, 5 is Seed, 4 is Cursed, 3 is Bride for me. So you go.
All right. So then after Curse, I have number 5 is the remake, Child's Play 2019. And hear me out on this one.
All right.
I don't look at this as part of the Don Mancini, Chucky, and or Child's Play films. I see this as if someone
on your list, eh?
Why is it on? Because it shares the name and legal rights to it, and like it's and it is obviously trying to be like a reboot of the original. Like that's what it's trying now. And what I give it credit for, despite how the premise is still a bit flimsy as far as like this. In fact, I'll say it this way: this is probably the worst of the kind of quality of all of the Child's Play films on the series. But what I really liked about it when I watched it this time is that it actually really isn't much like Chuck. It's not Chucky like Brad Dourif. It's just some Chucky doll. And there is a genuine heart to the connection that the kid and Chucky have, that Andy and Chucky have in this, that I think is actually pretty effective. Like you kind of feel bad for Andy, and you kind of see, like, you almost feel bad for Chucky in the beginning. And the only thing that really doesn't work, aside from like the whole AI aspect, which is a bit overblown, is Aubrey Plaza as the mom, which is just, she should be the sister. Like, just make it the sister. It's way more believable. But aside from that, the kills in that are fucking great. Like it's kind of creepy and fun that he like Mark Hamill's got this very happy-go-lucky, like Jokerish voice, clearly, because that's all you can hear when you hear Mark Hamill. But it does sound again, I'll give him credit. It's not Joker, but it's still Mark Hamill. He's got a thing.
And
But it's
he
still good.
does, but I will give you that the kills are good, and yes, you do feel bad for him and Chucky before the shit hits the fan. But Mark Hamill in this reminds me of Jackie Earl Haley in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Yeah.
Where like, yes, he is doing a good job, but like he has nothing to work with.
Yeah, the
Like,
shoes aren't filled.
No, they're not. And he's trying. He's
Also, the doll looks fucking stupid. Like I'm like it is like it's not it works for the context of the film because he's supposed to be like because in the original Child's Play, we know the good guy doll is good, but we know in the beginning that this one isn't. So like in the case that like we're supposed to assume that this is a toy that everyone buys, it makes sense that he sounds really corny and looks kind of corny, but it still is not great.
See,
He's not this.
I don't even buy that because to me, this is a movie about an evil Alexa, which
Yes.
is a scary thought. That's an interesting way to go for a horror movie. But you're not putting your Alexa in the body of a doll for kids to play with. Like you are forcing the Chucky of it all into this movie when that's not how it should. Who would market like a almost life-size doll toy in the year of our Lord 2019 when this came out? Like, no, not at all. It's so shoehorned in that it doesn't feel genuine to me. Not at all from the beginning. Like
it definitely I will again I'm not defending it in regards to it not being a callous way to make money off of a franchise and kind of screw over Don Mancini. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say that that's not the case. But what I will say is that it's a valiant effort to try to do the film a little differently, and I think it succeeds in more ways than it fails. But it's trying to do something that is an impossible task. It's trying to be as good as the Don Mancini Chucky, but that's not possible, and it's not confident enough to break away from it and do its own thing. But at the same time, it does a good enough job, and it's a lot more entertaining than it has any right being. The drone kills are like the drone scene is fun. Like there's a lot of just it's goopy as fuck. But yeah, I can understand that. I also understand the hate too, and I don't have these. I wish I could change these opinions of mine, but
that's no, you have the right to your opinions, and honestly, like I love Don Mancini, but like he doesn't care what I think of this, and I gotta say, if this was good, fine. Like it's sorry Don, but like I'd say no, it's still a good movie, but it's not. It's like this is what you did with the child. This is what you did with the rights. This is what you did with the Child's Play name. This is what you did instead of letting Don Mancini do something at a higher budget like this. Like.
But look where it got Don Mancini. I'm just gonna say, like, I don't know if I'm not gonna say that he would have not gotten that far. Like, I'm not gonna make the case that
there wouldn't be
this was necessary. Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that would be the case. But what I would say is that the path that Curse of Chucky took and that Cult of Chucky took led to a TV show that's now going to its second season. So, and I don't know if the studio, even if they would have given him, like, I don't think that relationship was ever one that was like going to give him the creative control he was going to need to make the movie. So it's like, like scarcity is the mother of invention kind of shit.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I get the hate. It's not unwarranted, but you're gonna really hate my next one. I'm just telling you right now.
What number are we up to?
I'm on my 4th.
Okay.
Child's Play 2.
It's 4?
Yeah, but here's okay.
All right.
3's above it. 3's above her. 3's above it. And here's the reason why.
Yeah,
Child's Play 2, Child's Play 2 to me is not near as much. It's not it the pace. It's not near as well paced as Child's Play 3 is. And maybe it's because Child's Play 3 has a lot more like higher stakes because I think there's a higher body count, and there's some I mean just that paintball scene alone. But like the best part about Child's Play 2 is the third act. That is the best third act in the entire series. Like there's no that I will that is there's I will not hear anything else. That is the best. Well, the first one actually is they're on the same level.
first
Same
one
level.
compete, but no, the second is incredibly strong. Yes,
Like Ed is such an insanely good like that toy that the setting, the location, it all works. But everything leading up to that, especially like it hasn't aged very well for me. And a lot of it's because it's like this is like how do you, these are the shittiest foster parents of all fucking time. Like they are so awful to this kid. And that it almost feels like Problem Child with the Child's Play movie. Like it's like there's parts of it that are filmed like almost like a Tim Burton film, like high angles and like weird colors.
yeah, fisheye lens, the movie, and the set
Yeah,
looks weird. Supposed to,
and like it's
yeah,
not like it's bad. Like the first, like the opening of it is fucking strong as hell, and then it
yeah.
kind of peters out for the middle. You know, there's some fun stuff in there. It's most like the best parts are Chucky antagonizing Andy because that's like kind of what you're here to see. But you also want to see a bit of a body count. The teacher kill is like highly unentertaining, and then you kind of finally get to like develop a forget her name,
Kyle, the older
Kyle. Yeah,
sister.
like you finally start to get like Kyle more in the mix, and like that helps a little bit. But what really starts to kick it off is once they get in the car chase, and then it ends up in the toy factory, and that's where things just go like that is perfection. That is cinematic like glory 101 for me. But everything leading up in that middle part just felt like a drag. It's but it's not bad. It's still not bad. Still not bad. Just
Lots of
drag.
people actually prefer Child's Play 2 to Child's Play 1.
Yes.
I'll listen to that argument. I disagree with it, but it's certainly not as crazy as putting Child's Play 3 above Child's Play 2. But we'll get to that. Why am I your friend?
I don't do this to upset you. I don't do this to upset you.
I wish you'd drink more. So Child's Play 2 is my number 2.
Understandable.
I just love this movie. And yeah, it's like it's weird. It's weirdly shot, and it's really bright, and it's a contrast from the first film, but there's no, what is it? It's lean and mean. I think it's like 80 something minutes.
It's tight.
And he's just trying to get to Andy, and that's it. And there's obstacles in his way, and he tries to get over the obstacles. It's like a chase scene in a house almost. And yeah, the ending is incredible. The kills are great. The factory worker and the eyes, the prosthetic makeup is incredible.
Yeah.
The
You can definitely tell a difference in that. Like from 1 to 2, it's a massive upgrade.
It's like peak Chucky, Well, it's not the best in the series, but it's like, it's the dream master of the Child's Play franchise, I should say. And it's just it's a lot of fun. You're in, you're out. His death is great. It's just the foster family sucks, but they're gonna die. Fuck them, like there's just enough there to get us through. And also he's just the funniest in this. Like he has like the best bits, like when he's like beating up the other doll and like burying him, and like he's no dolls that pee, this one bleeds, and he just looks at the cop and he's like, Chuck, like it's the yeah. And the one last thing though, when he realizes he's stuck in the body and he's like, what the hell, like like Brad Dourif must have done like 10 takes of that, and he's like, no, I'm gonna get the best, what the hell. And he did. Just well, and it's a 1990 movie. Like if you're making a list of the best 90s horror films,
it's on there easy.
Yep.
I mean, it's still
Play 3, Child's Play 2. I'm sorry, go. It's
all right. Here's why Child's Play 3 is my number 3, though.
wait, are you
I
up to 3 or
Yeah,
are we? Okay,
because 4 was Child's Play 2 for
yeah,
me. So Child's Play 3 is my number 3 because I also think I probably saw this more than the second one. Like when I was younger, for some reason, this one was probably on more than the second one, even though I'd seen the second one dozens of times because it's just these
mhm,
were staples like for me.
yeah. Two and
And
three were on USA Network, so I have
yes,
memories
yes.
of putting them together. Yeah,
And like just like Halloween 4 and 5, like those were always on, good kind of like clockwork. So like there's some that just are kind of ingrained. And I think what I always liked about Child's Play 3 is that even though you didn't have you didn't have Alex Vincent, which was kind of not, I don't know what the reason is, but you could,
they
he's
probably just
fine.
wanted to go in a different direction, or
Yeah.
like, all right, you got to churn this out. Like, you know, it's yeah. I don't
I'm
know. Maybe he was
I'm
just
sure
trying.
there's a reason. I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
reason out there at this point. But either way, like I like the military school setting. I think that's actually a very interesting, like
Mm,
I think it's just like it's an interesting idea that you don't get a lot of like academic horror. Like you don't get a lot of like things that are kind of confined to these like school type settings. Except the faculty, which is fucking amazing and underrated in all regards.
yeah. Oh yeah, but it's not even an academic horror. It's like the military school set. It doesn't even have to be a military school until they get to the war games at the end. It could be any fucking private school.
Well,
It
there
could
is
be
like a lot of that, like just toxic. Well, I'm not to say toxic mess, but like the like just general misogyny and like kind of overt kind of machismo of like there was definitely a lot of, I don't know. I don't know if it was trying to make fun of that, but it definitely felt like it was trying to make at least a joke about how absurd like machismo is in the military and like how that doesn't really, like obviously Chucky kills a lot of those people, but I also like that it kind of goes to the other. His name is Jordan. Uh, what's the kid's name? Um,
Tyler.
Tyler.
Yeah.
And like Tyler, and like I like Tyler as a character. Like actually, like I felt bad. Like like it's kind of like he was like only it's like an Andy Barkley. Like again, he's like he felt more sympathy. He felt as sympathetic as him, but
He annoyed me. I'm sorry, but he was not a good child actor. I'm sorry.
he wasn't but like I liked it. I just liked that they switched it up and moved it like and like that Andy was trying
Yeah,
to protect him from Chucky versus just doing the same old like after Andy again. Because at this point, like Andy's
that's creative.
big
Yeah,
enough to kind of fuck up Chucky. So it's like he's not the same threat that he is when he's smaller. But anyway, I get the hate towards it too. So it's not like, and there's a lot of problems with it too. Like it's not, but for me, it just I just find it more entertaining. I just find it more kind of it's almost campy in how absurd some of like the shit that happens in it is. And the fact that there are actual bullets at a military academy are also like, it's like, yeah, of course that wouldn't happen. But that's a great fucking idea. It's like just switch the bullets out for paintball. And it's savage as fuck. But anyway, Child's Play 3. So your number
cool.
2 is Child's Play. What's your number 1? Pretty sure
Uh,
we're gonna be on the same page. Yeah.
are we up to number? Are
Well,
we?
mine I have number 2, but
I'm up to. Well, I mean, I'm up to number one. I talked about everything else, but you can
Seed
go.
of Chucky. And here's why it's so high on my list. But it used to be the lowest. This used to be my least favorite Child's Play film. But that this was
Me too. I was surprised I put it above Cult, honestly, but yeah, it's a grower.
so. I actually think that the self confidence that this movie has, I did not understand when I first saw it because it wasn't a movie for me. Like it just wasn't like and it's a very personal movie. You can tell like how personal it is. I mean, if you hear Don Mancini talk about it, makes it even more the case. But like I think over time, what continues to work about it is that it kind of it's extremely meta, but not in an annoying way. And they somehow take this absolutely, again, just like how Bride is an absurd concept, they double down with the absurdity and somehow it works. Somehow it's not perfect, but it's so much fun, and it is so like in the way that Bride kind of doesn't push itself to go into the absurdity that really lean into the absurdity that it wants to all the time, because it's still trying to be a good horror movie, which I think that's the difference. Is like Bride of Chucky is a much better horror movie than Seed of Chucky, but Seed of Chucky is just so singular in how
It's not even
campy.
trying a horror movie really at times. Like
No,
there's
but
a
it,
but it's mostly like a comedy with some horror elements.
yes, and like, but it works in that way, and that like the gore that like the horror elements are hilarious. Like the whole bodies falling out at the end where they're all like pointing fingers at each other. Like it's a fun movie, and I think the reason I ranked it so high is because it's also a lot deeper than it gets any credit for, and I don't think that I ever gave it that credit before because I was so turned off by not like this movie isn't for me. But like now that I've like times change, and like obviously our opinions of things change, and I think what I've come to find is that not only is this movie deeper than it gets credit for, but it kind of has a timelessness to it that you can go back and watch this, and like the the time and place of it are less relevant than like Bride of Chucky, where it feels distinctly like late '90s, as you were saying. Like where like this feels somehow living in its own ambiguity. It's living in its own world. It's living in its own like kind of
In reality,
yeah, that's
it's
like
almost
it's
a
like a
parody.
Tarantino. It's like Tarantino's LA is like this, like the same world that this exists in, where it's like
It's
there's an
Romania,
exaggerate.
yeah,
Yes.
where this was filmed. Yeah, yeah. I will
Um,
say, I mean, none of the Glenn or Glenda stuff was any. I didn't dislike any of that at the time, and like, yeah, that is part of why it's aged like
yeah.
better than most. It's just like I wish this wasn't his directorial debut. Like, I wish
Mm,
he directed a few more movies before he got to this, because then it would really be something special. Like, to me now, it's just like a curiosity, but like, I get what you're saying.
yeah. I found that it was like a lot. I was way more engaged, and I think what I judge it on this time is less like because I've seen these movies multiple times, right? Like, at least probably 5 times each of these movies, some of them much more. I feel like going back to them now, I find that, your tastes are going to change. And because of that, my level of engagement in them will as well. And so while there's the nostalgia factor for things like two, I also was like kind of bored by some of it because there's other parts that are some of the more recent ones, or some of the ones that try kind of bigger swings, are like kind of more like entertaining now. They're more like, oh, okay, this is a lot of fun. It's like almost like they're cult. That's why I think Seed is the most cult classic of any of these, in that it is so different, but also not at all. Like Chucky's still Chucky, Tiffany's still Tiffany. They're
Yeah.
just the tone is very much very centered on just
Mm-hmm.
being more funny than scary, and using horror more as a way to kind of deliver the humor, as opposed like a Dead Alive. Like Dead Alive's not scary;
Yeah.
it's just absurdly funny and gory. Um, which brings us to I think our number one,
Well,
which
hold on. I just want to
yeah,
say, I like not many. I don't know many movies that do this, or maybe any movies that do this. But Seed of Chucky takes what was Chucky's driving motivation for 5 movies, and at the end, he just throws it out because he's sick of it. When he's like, this is just too much trouble to try and get into a human. I like being a doll. Meanwhile, he's been in a doll body for like 2 weeks since the first movie. Like, if you really track the time that he's been in the doll, like, and it's like, no, this is actually, it's like, you know what? It's like Royal Tenenbaums. Like, this was the best time of my life. And as Royal said that, as Chucky said that, he knew that it was true, and it's a hilarious joke and it just works. So, like, kudos to being able to pull that off, I say. Yeah.
and it's I mean and I usually am I usually feel that meta is very difficult to use in film, or
Yeah.
do it use well. We've talked about this, with Five Cream, and also how brilliant New Nightmare is. Like, and I think that the meta angles that are the meta part of Seed of Chucky is just right. And and that I think this was 2008, was when Seed of Chucky, or 2000,
Or
2004, somewhere. Yeah, dates
Right.
are. I'm not great with dates, but the but it. I don't know. It felt like it was just again because it was his own thing. I think I just liked being in that world and just seeing how absurd that was. And I want to go. Again, it's like kind of one thing I was just more engaged with. But anyway, I think number one, we're both
Yeah.
on this one. So you tell like why is Child's Play the best one?
So I did a fun little experiment, which I kind of like to do with horror movies, or really any really popular, iconic movie in general, where I try to watch it like and just keeping everything that I know of that makes it iconic just out of my mind. Like watch it like I'm watching it for the first time. Like, we all know that it's Chucky and it's the doll, but like the way that the film sets it up is so brilliant because the way it's shot, the way it's made makes you think like, could it be this kid is just crazy? And he's like going around and maybe he saw a news report and he's like murdering these people. Like, could that be it? But the reveal is one of the best reveals in horror. The whole scene where she finds the batteries and realizes that he's real, you could show that in film class.
Yeah.
Like the steps, that's like Hitchcockian. Like the steps that they take, the zoom on the batteries when they fall out of the box and realize he hasn't had them this entire time is just fucking genius. And it's not heightened. It's set in like regular Chicago. Chucky is scary. He looks scary. He doesn't have any catchphrases yet, and he's just kind of like, well, here I am. What do you think? And it's just, it's very tight and it feels like Chucky's a little shit, and he's not like, yeah, Freddy Krueger was human once. You could say Jason and Michael Myers were human once, but they're always sort of viewed as like the ultimate evil of the films they're in. But like, he's just a dick. He's just a
Yeah.
guy who loved to kill people, who made the most out of a bad situation, you know? And I think, and he is, even though he's a doll, he is one of the more humanized villains. And you really feel here that he is just such an acute asshole. Like rewatching the first one made me realize just how dark and fucked up these movies are. Like the
Yeah.
story of Andy is really sad, and there are moments in this, like when he's in the asylum and when he sees him running up the steps, he's like, he's gonna get me, he's gonna get me, and he starts to cry like a little kid would cry. Like I couldn't watch that. That was just like in a movie about a killer doll. That was too real. And like when Chucky's pretending to just be the doll and he's like, I like to be hugged, and Andy's like, I like to hug you. Like, and it's just like a cover for the mom, but for Andy it's real. It's like, oh God, this is so sad. And realizing like he winds up in foster care and then he just gets shuffled around the system till he goes to this military school he doesn't want to. It's like, it's really
Fucked
sad.
up.
Yeah, it's, and so I enjoyed the first one. But it's just, it's got a car chase that takes place pretty much inside an entire car. The ending is great. The burnt Chucky is great. It's just, and it's the best killer doll movie, and he's
Yes.
scary. Like
Yeah.
before, he's like Freddy Krueger 5 with a bunch of catchphrases. Like he is fucking terrifying, and it works just so well. It's number one with a bullet.
Yeah. Everything you said, ditto too, because and every time I watch this, I like what you said when you started about how you kind of try and watch these with like a first time experience. And I think that's subconsciously like I'd like to think I go into a lot of these without presuming that I liked it before, I'm going to like it again, which I think is also why my list kind of is a bit fucky even for my own. I didn't think I was going to end up liking some that I did more this time. But when it comes to Child's Play, always it's just it's so well made. It's so perfect. It's there's nothing about it that you could change for better and to make it any better, to make it any worse. Like just leaving it as is. And you're right that he is like a shit. And he is like you really feel like Andy is you genuinely feel bad for and like I think I don't remember being explicitly terrified of Chucky, but I know that I felt uncomfortable by it, like as a kid. Like it never like me to me, Michael Myers' mask was much more terrifying than Chucky. But still, I felt the horror of like Chucky and like you. I mean, I grew up with a Teddy Ruxpin doll. You know, like that's what the fuck
Yeah,
those
my
things were.
toys kill me. Yeah.
And I think that it is the best Killer Doll movie with no there's no contest. I mean, really, and it's all because all of the things work. You know, Alex Vincent's great and sympathetic. You know, Chris Sarandon is fucking great. Forget the name of the actor who plays the mom.
Like, and when they realize that this is really happening, it's convincing. It's like
Yeah,
it's like it
who's
all
well? He
clicks.
says, "Who's gonna believe me?" Like at the
Yeah,
end, he's like, they
uh,
acknowledge how absurd that is, and like it's
yeah,
very real, and like that's the I think that's what makes it so genius is like this is a absurd concept that is made to look very it's taken very seriously. Um, and like Chucky does all the things that you would think he would do if he was the person he was before he became the doll. Like he goes and takes vengeance and kind of cuts his, you know, he cuts his ties, so he's, you know, not nothing's tied. That's going to go back to him, and he's also trying to possess the body of a young boy the entire time. Like
yeah.
it's a fucked up movie, and it does a good job of being just fucked up enough to bring you in, but not trying to exploit the situation to the extent that it probably could. Um, and then the
Sorry.
ending. I mean, even not even the ending. The whole movie just rips, but like the middle, once you hit the midpoint, once they find out that, like you said, like when the mom finds out that the batteries were in the whole
When
time,
the animatronics kick in, yeah.
like that is just like the rest. I think that's the midpoint of the movie, and that's when like it doesn't stop. It just keeps going and
Yeah.
going, and it's amazing and entertaining, and it never feels old every time you watch it. I mean, the thing is, the key to these things I found, maybe you feel the same, is you just have to space out your views, and you can still capture that same sense of like enjoyment, because I used to just murder movies. Like I probably can't watch Dumb and Dumber anymore. You know, even to some extent Halloween, like I have to space out my Halloween views now because I just overloaded on it when I was younger. So like if I want to get back to why it's great, I have to kind of forget why it was. And childhood's movie that you can do that every couple of years. You go back to this, and you will find just so much enjoyment um, in perpetuity. I don't think it'll ever get old.
Absolutely. Bring on season two.
Yeah,
I'll watch.
I'm excited. As you know, I feel like at this point, as long as it's as good as this first season, it doesn't need to double down.
Yeah, because it's pretty good. And uh, I think I mentioned this before, but the first three movies, no cliffhangers. Just
Yeah,
they're self-contained films. That's there's something to be said about that, especially coming out of the 80s.
and they also have pretty great endings. Like there's not too many disappointing endings in the series. You know, there are parts of them that are disappointing, but as a whole, like the third acts usually pretty much deliver.
Yeah.
So, and I think that goes back to like, you know, what we've both agreed on before is like these aren't these aren't this is the most even series probably of any major horror franchise in regards to quality of film. None of these are bad movies. You know, none of these have like significant issue. I mean, I love Jason Goes to Hell, but like I also know it's a shit movie. So it's like I know that like that doesn't.
Or we don't pretend any of these entries didn't happen
Yeah,
or gloss. Yeah.
and they all have something different to contribute. Like there's not a part of them that ever feel. I mean, again, there's arguments to say that Child's Play remake doesn't offer too much new, but the kills are pretty great, and they're much gorier than I think anyone would have expected. But to that end, we got through a lot of these. I'm pretty safe in saying that by the next time we do this, we will probably dedicate this to Halloween Ends because it will be, or no, yeah, it
I
will
mean,
be
well,
October.
yeah, it's September now, so I mean, to do this like in the middle of October, I'm gonna have like a beard down to here. I'm gonna be like into my 30 day 30, watching a horror film for every day of October. I'm gonna be deep in the Halloween shit. I'm
Yes.
like I'm gonna be Colonel Kurtz about it. So that'll be a long one probably. We'll
Yeah,
see.
it's gonna be a rough month, and it is worth mentioning that we will be attending Horror Hound in the next week here,
Yeah.
and we're very excited to go support our good friends over at the Fred Has documentary for their premiere.
Ooh.
So if you haven't checked out that episode, I absolutely recommend it. It was a one of the best conversations we've had on here. I mean, I love talking to Lowell, but it was really nice to have some other folks tell us a little bit about their favorite Nightmare sequels and also just how they came to this documentary. And
Hell yeah.
yeah, but I think the next time we speak, the next time we do this, we'll be talking about the end of Halloween. And I'm just gonna say I hope it's a good I know it's gonna be a good conversation, but I hope it's a great movie.
Me too. I never want to see a bad movie.
Yeah.
They, you know, it's because why waste the money and the time? I hope it's great, and I still have faith. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're with you. We're with you. We're with you, Blumhouse, on this one. Well, to that end, we are just gonna, say goodbye. Lowell, it's good to see you.
You too, Matt.
And we'll see you next month for our next Macabre Monthly, most likely the Halloween Ends edition. Until then, stay safe, be good, and watch horror movies.
Later.